What's good, YouTube? Today has been a very interesting day. So we started off with an L on our alerts today, trading NAS. It's been like a really rainy day. It's getting really cold in Houston over the next 2 days. My soccer team just got eliminated from the Champions League. It's just days like this, you know? I wanted to make this video because I wanted to talk about how I handle losing in the markets, right? I think, we've talked about losses in the channel before, but I really want to show you guys, some of the details about what to really do in a losing day, because really, aside from P&L and just, your account losing percentages, whatever the case is, it's really beyond that. It's the state of mind that we have to be very conscious of whenever we have days like that in the market and in life, period, right? Now, what I'm talking about really is not a big deal, guys. And that's the point of the video, right? Is, when it comes to losses, I think the biggest thing is evaluating how you feel afterwards and what you do with that feeling. Because there's really two scenarios that are gonna happen whenever you start to, go through a day like that. It's either you happen to be in a good mood, other things in your personal life or whatever may be going really well, so you're just kind of like, whatever, we'll come back to the market tomorrow, not a biggie. And then, there's just days where like other things in life on top of you losing a trade just make the day or make the trade feel worse than really what it was. I know if I feel that, you guys probably feel the same thing. Every trader really goes through the same thing. And I think it's what you do with that feeling that determines how long you stay in that mode, right? Because the biggest thing that we need to have as traders is to have the sharpness mentally. You never want to turn, a losing moment into a losing day, into a losing week, month, year, right? You want to try to clip those, vibes, feelings, whatever you want to call them, to be as short-lived as possible. And so there's a process that you want to really go through. Number one, on the charts, but also with how you filter out these emotions and your state of mind so that you can bounce back to have an even better day the next day. So diving into today's trade, we see that we called out this trade about 9 hours ago. Towards the beginning of New York session, I called out a buy limit for NAS 100. Following my Liberty strategy, we actually got a W yesterday on President's Day. Ran for about a 2% gain, which was great. I figured in this opportunity, we were gonna be able to see price pretty much have a retracement back up, since we had a major sell-off heading into New York session, mid-New York session. And to be honest, I actually had the sells at this area as my first thought process heading into the trading day, since, I was looking at the charts around midnight and we were basically around somewhere in this price point. I'm like, man, we were at all-time highs on NAS. I figured that we're due for some type of correction to sell off pretty aggressively here soon. And man, let me tell you, this market, right at, I think it was, pretty much right before New York Stock Exchange open, which is what caught me off guard. I was actually waiting for 9:30 a.m. Eastern to kick in to really see some type of volatility. And we got it 5 minutes before, which I don't usually see. And by the time we started seeing price dip, I wasn't mentally there to just be like, oh, we're taking a trade here. I just saw how fast we moved right before the New York Stock Exchange opened. And I don't want to say I hesitated, but I just was caught very off guard by how fast we moved prior to when I thought we'd get, our entries. For those that, are in the private mentorship, they know the strategy that I teach is basically we're looking for either breaks or fakes from, these two price points. And we saw during, London session, we basically tested this high point many times, building up downside liquidity here. But I figured if we got some massive, candles pushing us below that, we should sell off. So literally everything happened the way that I thought it would, but I just got completely caught off guard by how fast it happened before 9:30. And so I didn't pull the trigger on this, ended up seeing this continue to melt down. And at that point, just looking back in hindsight, when we were here, my thought process was, okay, same way that we, had a fake out of the high side, I would expect for us to be able to raid the low, even if we had to grab liquidity of these lows down here. You know, the 500 pip stop loss should have been enough to hold us, grab that liquidity and shift us. This was my entire thought process. It looked really good in the moment, obviously, as all trades probably do to all traders when we decide to take them. And really in this trade, we saw an aggressive 5-minute candle, basically almost, you know, wick us to stop loss. And then we actually had price come into profit. So very much so how I talked about in a previous video recapping last week's trading. You guys can check out up here if you want to see. We had a very similar situation where we got very close to stops, went into profit, and then later we ended up hitting stop loss. And so it was just the fact that we had pretty much, like, in the last 3 trades had not back-to-back losses, but in the last 3 trades we had 2 losses, 1 win. And the 2 losses were very similar in the sense that we got close to stop, went into profit, and back into stops. And, you know, we just had so much aggression of sellers coming into the market that it just was too soon for me to go for the buys. Fast forward to the end of the session now, as we head into a new trading day, we saw that we ended New York session with a massive rally back above the low here, and this is really the type of movement that I was looking for just earlier in the session to get back up into these fair value gaps. So this is really where I expect price now, headed into Wednesday the 19th of February here, for us to get back into this area. So again, idea was there, but the execution and the timing obviously was not in alignment with what the market was looking to do. I think for me, the biggest thing that frustrated me was the fact that I originally was looking at price, you know, during New York session up here and preparing myself to be able to execute a sell, which would have been a great trade, because if we look at the sell opportunities here, we would have definitely had almost a 3% gainer. I think it went, at the end, it ended up going for about 3.2. At this point where it went about 2.76, I probably would have exited somewhere around here when it was all said and done for almost a 3% gain. But the fact that it ended up running for over 3% before ultimately reversing is frustrating, again, just because in the sense that this was the first idea that came into my mind since last night, and even heading into New York session, and just my inability to be prepared to take massive action very quickly as this candle formed, it just came back to obviously haunt me in this situation. And I think, you know, looking at this trade, if I would have executed here, would I have really been looking for the buys? You know, at least so early, would I have really been looking at them? The answer is probably not, right? Because I would have been floating in profit over a 1-to-1 risk to reward ratio at that point, you know, hoping for us to maintain that, and then eventually running to damn near 3%. You know, it would have just been a very great day. And that's how sensitive your trading day can really be. You can go from having an original idea that ends up playing out, missing that, end up trying to catch something else, losing that, and ending up the day, you know, with a minus 1% or whatever it is that you're risking, instead of being a plus 3%. So if you really think about it, this is the sway of going from a minus 1% day to a plus 3% day. And that's actually a total of a 4% difference, right? Assuming that you're risking 1%, right? Because not only did you not get the 3%, but you also lost 1%. So in reality, it's like a swing of 4%. And that now brings my win percentage for the month of February. We're about a little over 2 weeks in, to about 67%. So we're still right around that 70% mark, which is perfectly fine. And I mean, the risk to reward element of my trading is really what matters to me the most. So I'm not even really worried about, you know, our statistics for the month at all. You know, overall, we're doing really well. We've had people passing funded challenges. Things are great. It's just, I hold myself to a standard, especially, you know, as a signal provider and educator for the platform, where, you know, I'm looking to go on win a lot of like big winning streaks, right? I'm looking to catch 3, 4, 5 wins plus in a row consistently, maybe have 1 loss here. So the fact that in the last 3 trades, you know, we're only 1 for 3, again, it's not a big concern in terms of P&L, but it's just holding yourself to try to have as high of a standard that you possibly can. And look, I mean, at the end of the day, sometimes it's realistic, some days it's not. But again, it's just the fact that original idea was this one that would have ended up working out, would have turned us back-to-back winning days, a total of a 5% gain over the last 2 days. Instead, we end up with 2% yesterday, a minus 1% today for only a plus 1%. Again, a 4% swing, but what can we do about it at this point, right? The only thing we can do is reset for tomorrow. Tomorrow may not even be a trading day, right? Tomorrow we have FOMC at 1 p.m. Central, 2 p.m. Eastern. So it's a toss-up, right? Are we gonna get a very choppy New York session, prior to FOMC? Sometimes that happens. We might get a very slow day heading into FOMC, and then FOMC just goes and passes out and really moves the market, right? So, heading into tomorrow, who knows? What type of day we're gonna have. But again, all we can do is reset, have mental clarity heading into the next trading session, and execute our edge, execute our strategy that we've back tested and that we've relied on all year long, and continue to let the probabilities play out. So the golden question whenever we're reviewing charts like this is, what could I have done to not lose a trade today? And, I don't think that's really the proper question to ask. I think the real proper question to ask yourself at the end of a trading day, win, lose, or draw, is, did I follow my trading plan? Did I follow my strategy? Is there something I actually could have done better? Or is this just what I call a regular loss? Now, the only thing I could really think of was, hey, we actually had price very aggressively pushing into this low here. But when I called out the trade as a pending buy limit, but I have been a little bit more patient to allow the market to see if it was going to, slow down. Because if I would have done that, we would have seen that price very aggressively came into that low and broke very aggressively below it. I would have maybe hesitated a little bit, which would have worked out for everybody if I would have actually not pulled the trigger there. But again, everything is hindsight in 2020, because guess what? Yesterday, same approach. We had the market buy limit at the low, ended up taking that and moving up very nicely. So if it worked yesterday, it could have worked today. So as traders, we always do these if and scenarios. Oh, I wish I would have done this. I wish I could have, right? The coulda, woulda, shoulda. And the only difference I could really take away from yesterday to today was that being a holiday, it was a much slower day. So heading into that entry, that could have played a part in making it a safer entry than today, where we saw a massive volatility during the New York session, and we probably could have been a little bit more patient to wait for later in the session to start executing those buys. But ultimately, holiday or not, news or not, we don't know. We don't control the markets. We don't decide which way things go. We simply develop an edge, a strategy, and we let the probabilities play out. And so the only regret, I guess you could say, I would have for the day is simply, what was the first trade idea that I saw with the freshest of mindset, without any opinion, without any interaction with anybody else? Like, what's the first clean setup that I visualized for the day? It was the sell up here. So if anything to adjust or to take away from a day like that is, hey, whatever you see as the cleanest setup of the day, really try to execute that without flaw, so that we don't have to try to go and look for secondary type of opportunities later that may not be as clean as what you originally saw, playing out in the first place. Now, I think for myself, and really a lot of people that are, in this game, we have times where we may take, a loss after being on a win streak, or maybe, things have been going generally well in our trading recently. And so the loss, we kind of just dust it off, keep it moving. And that's the state of mind that you always try to be in when you lose. But I think there's key moments in a trader's career throughout the year that really test your emotional intelligence. They really test your ability to get up and persevere. If you are, for example, on a fresh account, whether it's personal, funded, and you may have been trading it for a while, been doing well, and now you find yourself in drawdown for the first time on that capital, that's a key moment that tests how you really receive that loss. Other moments are, hey, you're very close, or maybe you just failed a funded challenge. How do you bounce back mentally from those things? Because on a trade by trade basis, again, when things are generally going well, it's very easy to dismiss a loss and just keep things moving. But it's your ability to keep that same type of energy whenever you have those key moments in your career, again, where you lose an account, you fail a funded prop firm challenge, you get into drawdown for the first time on your capital, whatever the situation may be. It's your ability to always zoom out and keep the perspective in line. It's always getting back to the basics of why did you get into trading in the first place? What drove you to make the decision to get into this industry and go for it in the first place? Understanding that for you to go and manage your first 5-figure account, 6-figure account, eventually 7 figures, you need to know what it's like to lose $100, $1,000, $10,000. So long as you have your edge, your way of becoming profitable in the markets with your system, your setups, your strategy, the only real thing left is you. You are the X factor ultimately that's gonna make this thing work. So yes, when we're actually interacting in the markets, when we are executing, it is about turning off the emotions. It is about executing and just looking at every trade as probabilities, as just one next trade. But really the magic is in the before and after the charts, right? The morning before you start executing and the afternoon or nighttime, whatever, sessions you're trading. But whenever you are finished with your trading session, that's really where the magic happens. And you have to realize at the end of the day, you're still a human being, right? You're still gonna have to process emotions. You're still gonna have to go through a lot of challenges mentally, and it's your ability to take a punch and to get up and keep it moving. Now that is it for this one, you guys. I hope that you found some massive value from everything we talked about in this video today. Please make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and turn on those post notifications so you never miss any other videos on the channel. Appreciate you guys for wrapping up over 1,000 subs. We're pushing towards 1.5 very, very soon, but it wouldn't be possible without y'all. So much love, God bless, and as always, let's run it up.